You only need one verse to show you why you should never be using the King James Version of the Bible. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. The verse is Jude 22. Jude only has one chapter, so you just say Jude verse 22. So Jude verse 22 says, "On some have compassion, making a difference." So the first problem that you encounter with this verse is the term "making a difference." And when we say "making a difference" now, we mean like I'm going to like work on an issue, work with a person. I'm going to put my time and energy and effort in, and I'm going to make a positive impact on some part of my world, some person in my world, right? That's what making a difference means. So if you read it, it says, "On some have compassion, making a difference." So it sounds, when you read it that way, with that understanding, when you have compassion on people, it makes a difference in their lives. The problem is that term "making a difference," that way of understanding that phrase was only used since the 1900s, right? There was a different meaning to that word when the King James Version was being translated. And at that time, the phrase "making a difference" meant making a distinction between two things, like deciding between two things, like making a difference, figuring out what the difference is between two things. When you read it with that definition, it would basically seem to mean that on some people have compassion on some people, but make a distinction between which people are worthy of your compassion and which people are not. So that's a big problem with the King James Version of the Bible, is that it was written a long time ago, and the meaning of words has changed since it is written. This is just one of a million examples of that, like the word charity actually meaning love and not an organization that you donate to or kind of giving to causes, right? There's a lot of words that when you read them, in the King James Version, you will misunderstand them because they meant something else when it was translated. But the next problem is that in the most ancient manuscripts, when you look at this verse, the object of the word compassion is different. And so the idea is that you need to have compassion on people who are making a difference, who are making a distinction, people who are doubting, who are having questions. The idea is that, like, if people have questions, you should have compassion on them because it's a hard thing. It's something that they need help with, they need support with. Have compassion on people who are questioning. See, now this is another huge problem with the King James Version, is that since it was published, we have found much more ancient manuscripts. We have a much better sense of what the original texts of the Bible said. And so the King James Version, this passage in Jude, it was being translated from an outdated source, a source that we now know is not the most accurate. You can actually find that throughout the King James Bible, or throughout a modern Bible. You can go, and in the King James Version, it'll have a passage, and sometimes a verse will be removed altogether, or there will be, an asterisk, like a huge section at the end of the book of Mark that says, this wasn't in the original manuscripts. But that is a huge problem because there is stuff in the King James Version that is just error. It's just actually wrong because we can see that the more ancient, more accurate manuscripts of the Bible have the corrected version, right? That since then there was an error introduced. So when you look at what scholars say is the most accurate current rendering of the text into English, which is the New Revised Standard Updated Edition, Jude verse 22 reads, "And have mercy on some who are wavering," right? Very different than the King James Version, because the King James Version has outdated language. It has outdated source material. I actually have a linguist on yesterday's episode of Unbelief, You can find that in TikTok and the place where you find links, because you've got to be careful what words you say, otherwise nobody will see this video. Anyway, she talks about the language, and we go through all kinds of really interesting things. Like, these are two really huge reasons. That's really the only two I feel like you need, but there's a lot more, because it is a really complicated text, both historically, like how it came to be, and when it was used, and really all kinds of really interesting things. And what I'm saying is that when you are forming spiritual beliefs, when you are using an ancient spiritual text to help you do that, you need to find one that is as good a translation from the original language into your language as you can.